Yam, I was just thinking about that cool phrase that you dropped, net externalities, and a little bit from my wheelhouse, the idea of necessary and sufficient. So I'm sure you were just being glib and could easily think it through, but in the beginning of the 5 helmet myths, you were talking about the apparent sort of shock at the primacy of eye protection in legislation over helmets. And obviously helmets sometimes do include forms of eye protection. I'm wearing these dorky 7 eyes here. So I think you've mentioned you ride bicycles, so I'm sure you know, like, ever since, I was a little kid, when you put on those little speed computers and calibrate them accurately on cycling, around 25, 30 miles an hour, your eyes typically start to like weep uncontrollably, and depending on the environment, pretty susceptible to all manner of things coming into your eyes. So we would say that eye protection is necessary, but not sufficient. And that's in terms of protection in a crash. And of course, we all know the nuance that not every piece of gear guarantees any type of safety and ride within your limits and all these sorts of things. This isn't advice, but we all know very well that you, Yammie, could easily, I'm sure, go 130 miles an hour on the track, stark naked, as long as the bike had stock pipes and was a relatively cool running machine with like a full fairing, like inline-four or something. If you're out there on your inline-four, you're going 136 miles an hour. This is child's play for your level of expertise, as long as you had some sort of eye protection on. You wouldn't even need socks, you wouldn't need gloves, but you would probably need the eye protection. And I definitely know the importance of eye protection from skydiving, even when there's not a lot to see and there's not a lot of dust in the air. So eye protection is a million times more important, or you can't even quantify it, but I would say it's necessary, right? So, but it's not sufficient. Of course, no piece of safety equipment is sufficient, but with something like the eyewear, you have to look at the primacy of that. And apparently that's true for working in the shop, although I don't really know about working in the shop and stuff, but I always try to have eye protection when I'm working any sort of like manual labor around tools. I think that's really best practices, and I've seen from some of the more mechanically oriented memes on the internet the idea of the safety squint, and Shade Tree will joke about not having eye protection, but it actually is super, super, super important. So I couldn't emphasize enough the importance of eye protection. And there are a lot of discussions about false senses of security. I think the neck issue actually is real. I'm not saying don't wear a helmet, I always have. But that's why I got my wife into an airbag, and always have her ride with an airbag. But the most important thing is just slowing down. I wish there was a way, in a safe sort of virtual environment way, if you could just, have the experience of seeing what these accidents do. Like if somebody could prove that they had like at least 10 square inches of road rash or something, then they'd be allowed to ride a motorcycle. But obviously things don't work that way. But I do think you should have to have health insurance. I'm not saying if the government should pay for it, or your employer should pay for it, or you should pay for it yourself, but I think no health insurance, no ride. And if you want to get really radical, a lot of old timers say that if you get hurt in a motorcycle accident, you should say you stepped on the Legos. I always tell the truth, so I'd never do that. But it's these people that get in these spectacular crashes that are like ruining the stats and raising the rates for the rest of us type vibe. But yeah, man, I think could go on and on. Very, very, very complex issues. But I am a helmet wearer. I don't think they're the best thing for your neck. I don't think that's a disqualifying reason. But what I really wanted to mention is the absolute primacy, the necessity of eye protection. So eye protection is necessary, but not sufficient to protect you in a crash. So net externalities, we all trade cool shit from our undergraduate days. All right, one love, man. River, sit down.